we continue to move through a pattern of believing when the inner child imprints on a particular experience that was traumatic, then their whole context of life wraps around that belief, around that experience. And learning how to put a new information into the psyche, into the body, into your mind, of how it's like a filter, right? So how you filter out life and your expectations of what you can receive in life, what you can create in life, and what you can change in life gets really affected by the experiences that we imprint on as a child. So again, you're listening to Dynamic Change, and this show is I'm going to break down some psychology concepts and show how to work on healing that, releasing the emotional block, and a lot of times I will take you through guided meditations. I try to do that every show and show you ways you can work with the different layers of the self. So it's very holistic. So you're working on the somatic, your body response, where your emotions and trauma and everything is stored in your tissue. That's why I do those guided meditations, and work on the mind. Meditation also helps the mind, and it helps us kind of reset ourselves, and we can look at what our behaviors need to be, how we need to shift in our life to create more wellness, to attract more positivity, and to expect things that are going to be better for us so we can have better lives. And so today I'm talking about losing yourself in relationship. So, like romantic relationship, that's what I'm talking about. And there's different levels of losing yourself. If someone had a lot of trauma as a kid, they can just, it's almost like they have no identity and they surrender, kind of just, they don't know how to not give themselves over, and often to an abusive partner. So I will talk in a future show about those extreme cases, but I will work on the layers of it. So today, the layer I'm going to work on, it will be a little bit more subtle. I think it's very common that people have to work on boundaries. I think our society, in a lot of ways, boundaries is kind of an issue, I think, for society in general. So learning how to understand that we deserve to feel better, and when you don't feel good, when something feels bad or uncomfortable, like we really want to pay attention to those little red flags within ourselves, because I think that when we are really working on being as whole as possible, as healthy as possible within ourselves, that what is the goal in life is to feel comfortable, to feel safe, to feel like we can ask for what we need, we can have boundaries. I think a huge amount of the people in society don't even understand that they deserve to have healthy boundaries and what that means, what that looks like. Like there's no really healthy index for it. I mean, we can learn about it, right? Therapy can show us. You can go to support groups. And so there's places to reach out and learn about these things. But I will say that I don't think that the majority of society is, we're still grasping to be able to incorporate those healthy boundaries within our lives. I think these are new tools that back in the past, in past generations, they weren't there. So these new tools that have been here for a while now, a good number of years, but there's still like this education around developing them. And so I have a very optimistic part of myself that I will never let go on, that I believe we can always heal these issues, we can always learn new things. I think the brain is not, the capabilities of people is not really understood. and how much we can heal, and how much of our brain we're not using that can be focused on creating what we need, creating new like pathways within the brain to develop deeper understanding of ourselves that reflects in our life, and how to incorporate working the mind with the emotional body, with the somatic experience in the body, and moving forward in your life in a very whole way, like your whole being, not just the emotional body working on just that, or not just working on the mind, but working on the whole unit, being aware and functioning together, like a very mindful, very present, very in your body experience. And that's a lot to say. That is something that I, within my own life, continue to always develop. And I don't think it's something that we normally very easily are accessing within our culture. So it is a lot to say, and those are big expectations, but I will say it's worthwhile. And I do think it is a very important thing to consider developing, to always reach for the belief that you can, because I think that's really the meaning of life, is to be present on all those levels and to learn how to love yourself and to move forward in the most self-developed way you can. And when you do that, that helps society, that helps the people you love, that helps everyone. And if we all work on developing ourselves as much as possible, like really be determined, even if it's subtle ways, what that does is it helps heal everything as a whole, because we want to have a healthy society. We want to have happy people and happy experiences, happy children, a healthy earth. Like, we want that. I really believe that is a common goal. And so finding ourselves when we feel lost, when we feel disconnected, when we feel scared, reeling that back in to find a way to feel better and to feel happy and have joy in our lives, I think that's the goal. And so that's really my goal, why I do this show, is to share the things that I have found, what I teach for other people, to heal as much as possible and to stimulate the creativity of your thinking. I'm a very creative thinker, and I do believe that we can think outside the box to become more whole. So, to get started, today you're listening to Dynamic Change. My name is Michelle Love, and this is KPCALP in Petaluma. And today I will be talking about losing yourself in relationship, romantic relationship, and how that can look, and how you can start shifting that to take care of yourself and creating more boundaries. So again, I will be talking about the deeper level of trauma response in future shows, but just to briefly brush on it, when you grow up with trauma and physical trauma, violation of a more intimate experience, even verbal abuse can feel violating. These things really, I I have found, what I have found is that it causes people to freeze up inside. And then it's like in relationship with someone we're intimate with, there's this, like everything comes in. It feels like everything is kind of bombards you. There's no like barrier, right? There's no boundary. So the somatic experience of not understanding boundary, or ever having learned it, it's almost like you're the vacuum, right? Everything just comes into you, and you don't understand why. And there there seems to be no concept that was learned of how to have like a shield or a barrier or something that separates you from that experience of something feeling violating that just comes in at you. And so that can be a result of all kinds of different abuse patterns, um, domestic violence, all those things. It's like the person never learns that there is another way to experience life other than things having to like absorb almost. And so I'm a very strong empath my whole life. So I talk a lot about the somatic experience because I don't think there's been enough dialogue and education around how does that affect the learning, the being in your body, being able to have boundaries when your somatic experience comes from a place of just things going inward from other people into you. So that's like an energetic feeling, an emotional feeling. You feel it in your body, you feel it in your mind of like you're not allowed to have a boundary. You're not allowed to have a like a almost it's like feeling like there can be any kind of container or separation. So I think people that are very sensitive in particular can really identify this more easily. And then some people that aren't real sensitive and maybe that it's difficult for them to tune into their somatic experience, they may register it more so just with their mind. And so their thoughts will be because your whole body works with that thought. Okay, so if your mind believes, well, I don't deserve to have boundaries. I, I'm not lovable. I'm not a good person. I was beat up as a child, verbally, physically, on so many levels that the mind has no belief that it can do any, it has any other right, right? That it doesn't have the worthiness to have that justice of feeling I'm a worthwhile human being that deserves to have boundaries. So there is like this almost this giving in and surrendering to the big bad wolf. Let's put it that way. There's like this I don't deserve to have anything else, so I'm going to just give myself over to future patterns that feel so abusive and I would love to help people be able to stop that pattern because it's such a painful pattern, right? But I want to try to educate the somatic experience. So the mental experience is like you believe those thoughts, right? So you believe, okay, this is this I'm not good for anything. This is how life is. Like they just identify with that's how life is. But life is meant to be a good experience. It's meant to have joy. It's meant to involve feeling like you have self-respect, that you have sovereignty over your body and your space and your mind, like being allowed, giving yourself permission to have positive thoughts about yourself. So, when you grow up with abuse and no matter how like the different degrees of it are, there's not even um, a healthy development of realizing you deserve to even have healthy thoughts, kind thoughts about yourself. I mean, it can just be so degrading on so many levels. And so I want to work with showing how to reverse these processes. So if we're in relationship and we realize that we give ourselves over. And I want to talk about control. So, a lack of boundaries, one of the things that I find with it's pretty severe abuse, especially of an intimate nature type of abuse. When you've had that type of abuse, there is some really dysfunctional ways that are learned around the dynamic of control. That if I try to give myself over to this person and, you know, try to give them what they want on every level, in the intimate arena, in just giving them control of they get their way with everything, that maybe I'll be safe. I think that's the deep somatic belief, looking for safety. There's this search for safety. And the thinking is, and this is subconscious stuff. So I'm talking about some really deep layers, and I'm trying to bring that up to the surface for everybody. Like, what is our subconscious doing? What are we acting out without even thinking, in a way that's not just the automatic pilot? I want to really bring that up to the surface. So I think deep inside that person, I'm going to give it an imaginary name. Okay, so let's say Joan. I'm just making up a name here, okay? So let's say Joan grew up with abuse of an intimate nature, and verbal abuse, and some physical abuse. And so the psyche and the inner child, our emotional body, for Joan, she's going to be searching for ways to find safety, because none of that felt safe. You imprint on something where you don't even understand what safe feels like, but there's going to be this craving for, well, how do I find safety? And then the belief pattern can develop of, well, maybe I can be safe if I just give them what they want. Just get them off my back, right? So then there's this giving over of the self, which, like, if you reverse it, like the reverse psychology of that, that is finding a way to try to find control. So even though there's this dynamic of giving over the self, there is this element of, I can control that situation. Joan can control that situation, that person, that level of abuse, their response, how badly they're going to treat Joan, by giving over themselves to more abuse. That's so sad. And I want to help Joan. We can heal these things. These things can be healed. I will never give up the hope and the belief. And I know things can be healed. I've seen it over and over and over. So, but just be aware so that is a control dynamic right there. Even if there's more abuse involved, there is kind of a power within that dynamic. Right? But unfortunately, even though Joan may feel in control because she understands abuse, she understands those patterns already. So for her, this is her only way to exhibit her power, right? To try to at least control the experience to some extent. She's like, well, then maybe I can just keep it at this level of bad. And I want to help all the people that have ever had to deal with this. Because the thing to learn is that you never deserve to be treated like that as a child, and you don't deserve that in the future, but in present time, right? But it takes time to understand, how can I stop these patterns? So there's a lot of ways, and so just tuning into, okay, I'm in a relationship, and start journaling. I think journaling, you can also voice type. Some people, that's easier, right? Just record yourself, like the notes within your phone, and just record yourself and just let yourself talk when no one's around, or write it out, journal, and just kind of let it come out of you. Give yourself space to get a safe space, a way where you don't have a witness, where you can just really kind of unload and say, well, this is how I feel in relationship, and in reference to boundaries. Like, do you feel like it's safe for you to ask for what you need? What you need? Do you pretty much make the other person the entire focus? Are they the whole focus? Are they the ones that are, um, you're just trying to serve them in hopes that then they'll love you, then they'll accept you? And one of the lessons to know about is that no matter what you do, and this is something I think is really important when I teach self-defense, when I work with parents, I do like parent support groups and things like that. I think one of the things in our society, it's a little concept that I think has subconsciously put out there that I really think is not a healthy belief pattern or true, is you cannot make someone love you by giving yourself over intimately. It's not going to happen. So, parents, I think it's really important, one, to break down intimacy. Like, we have to start finding a way to have healthy intimacy in our lives, healthy boundaries, and also communicate that with our children so they understand that when they go through puberty, when they go through being a teenager, no matter what they do, they can't create that connection with someone by giving themselves over in any way. They're people pleasing, um, being intimate with them will not create love. So love comes first, and then hopefully those other things come second. But you can't elicit that through trying to just give over to them and not having boundaries. And I think that's a really regular pattern, is that we need to start looking at what an open heart truly looks like in a partner. And that's the focus. Because if someone's not really emotionally available and then you become intimate with them, that's empty. There's really no connection there. And it's unfortunate because I think that reinforces feeling more disconnect and feeling bad about yourself. Well, why wasn't I good enough for them to love me? Right? And for our vulnerable kids and teens, I think it's really important to kind of try to talk about these things, even if it feels messy and it feels like, wow, I don't even know how to talk about it. Well, try to make it simple, but talking about how does a healthy heart connection look? What does it look like? And I know as a parent, for me, I constantly, anytime I found an example of it, whether it was in a movie, in a book, in a friendship, somewhere where it got displayed so it could be viewed and experienced, I always shared that with my kid. I always said, see how they're relating to each other, see how they're taking care of each other, see um, that quality of emotional presence and connection. See how beautiful that is? Can you feel that? To try to educate, that's how it's supposed to be, because our society makes it presented so sexualized that I think it loses that humane connection that really warms our heart and makes us feel seen and makes us feel worthwhile and feel lovable, that is not cultivated within our society. So anyway, I think that's a really valuable, important piece of information. To anytime you can find a way to teach your kid about it from a young age all the way up, so by the time they get to puberty, by the time they start thinking about sexuality and all those things, that you've tried to really and hopefully succeeded in laying a groundwork for. You cannot make someone care about you and love you no matter what you do. It will not matter. And because I think that's a reoccurring pattern a lot of people do. So, again, my name is Michelle Love. You're listening to Dynamic Change. And this show is on KPCA LP in Petaluma. And I am talking about losing yourself in a romantic relationship. So not having healthy boundaries for yourself, what that can look like. I always make up an imaginary person. Today, the name is Joan. So our imaginary person is Joan, and she experienced abuse as a child, several different kinds, that really made it impossible for her to understand that she deserved to have boundaries for herself, so she tends to give herself over in relationship. Okay, so we've looked at some of those things. So I recommend journaling and even voice typing, and just talk about your experience in your romantic relationships in general, or the one you're in, and just say, okay, well, I typically feel like I think of the other person first all the time. Their comfort level always comes before mine. Okay, so there's one quality. I also never ask for help. I feel like I need to do everything for them to try to keep them happy. So Joan grew up with abuse. This is my example of how it could play out for Joan, okay? So she grew up being abused, so for her, she may think about keeping them happy to keep the abusive actions from being taken out on her, right? So there's this giving over of the self. There are no boundaries, just like, what can I do to appease that person so they are not abusive towards me? Maybe someday they'll love me. And most often, Joan probably ends up in abusive relationships, which is important to realize, because that person will 99.9% is not going to change. They are choosing to be abusive. That's so, no matter what she does, no matter how much she sacrifices herself, no matter how much she tries to do everything for that person, they're not going to treat her better, really. It's going to cycle. The abuse cycles, like the control wheel that you learn about with domestic violence and everything. There's like these good moments, right? And then they cycle through an abusive part of they call it the control wheel. So there's like the honeymoon stage where everything's great, and then you start to feel it. Oh my gosh, it's going to the bad place, and then it goes to the bad place, and then the abusive person says, "I'm sorry," and because they want to keep you, and it keeps circling. So we need to kind of look at, what are we experiencing? What is Joan's life like? What is the quality of our relationships? And so just keep dialoguing. And I run, so still voice typing, or writing down in a journal. Well, in my relationship, I take care of everyone so much, to the other extent that, even physically, I don't feel good. Like my health, it even affects my health. I'm tired all the time. I never do anything just for me. Like, it's all geared towards the other person. So that's one level of dynamics. So we're going to break that down for Joan. And we're going to talk about, okay, so Joan realizes these couple of things that are happening, reoccurring in her romantic relationships. So it's really good. She voice typed. That was easier for her. And she was able to allow some of that aha moments to come out of her as she kept communicating about it. And the more you communicate with things, journaling, talking, doing art, all these things kind of help pull it out of you. Because sometimes we don't know. Sometimes people really don't know. This is like subconscious stuff. Maybe they've never had therapy. Maybe they just really, that's a challenging way, challenging information for them to access out of themselves. So this is how you pull it out. I'm showing you ways to pull it out of yourself and start articulating it. So she's realized these things. Okay. So I think it's also important, if you realize that you're in a relationship where you're not going to win no matter what you do, and you are giving over yourself in a way where it's harmful for you, to realize you may have to leave the relationship. That's something to consider. Um, but I always encourage people to create space for themselves and to educate themselves. So if you realize, okay, my boundaries are really harmful, the lack of boundaries is really creating a harmful impact on me, look for a support group, go look for a book in the self-help section and just see what like screams out at you. Oh, I really feel that. That title really catches me. Or go to a women's group. Um, there's a domestic violence hotlines, whatever. But just reach out beyond yourself to a safe place. Start some therapy. Start, you know, start doing something where you're getting some information that may give you more aha moments, and it disrupts the pattern. So when we educate ourselves, when we do a physical action to create more understanding, you are actually disrupting the automatic pilot of a pattern, of a subconscious pattern that you are doing that is harmful for you. So you're doing a physical action to change it. So that in itself is powerful and healing. The more we disrupt the pattern and the behavior that we, realize we're doing or we know we do that is not going to help us thrive, when you do that, just keep doing that. So I show people how to do baby steps, because sometimes people really need baby steps. Sometimes people have been working on it for years and they're like, yes, I understand this. I've been in therapy, or I had a healthy childhood, so it wasn't that extreme. That's fantastic. But I like to break it down in baby steps, because sometimes people need that. And there's no shame in that. All of us are strong in different ways. And strength can be built up inside of you. I'm a self-defense instructor, and these are concepts I like to stimulate, bringing to people on how to develop strength when you feel like you don't have it, because you can learn it. Okay, so then she's realized that, okay, I'm out of a relationship right now. I had to leave the other relationship. Joan was like, those relationships were abusive. I realize that now. And I want to work on this, because I don't feel safe in the relationships, because it's never about me. It always feels a little out of control, because everything I do, my whole focus is to elicit, hopefully, love from them, their happiness. It's just this, all of it's about them. So there's no, because boundaries make us feel safe. So if there's no boundaries, Joan's not feeling any boundaries, it's almost like being on a little bit on a roller coaster. It feels like a little out of control, that it just kind of, there's no brake pedal. There's no safe container that the boundaries make you feel. Okay? So I would like, again, for everyone to hear that again. When things feel out of control, when it feels like it's just moving beyond a pace where you feel like there is time to breathe, to take kind of inventory of what's happening. I think a lot of times our society and a lot of us operate on this automatic pilot where it feels a little out of control. And so that's why I said it again. So sometimes you've got to really tune in and say, am I taking time to slow down and check in with myself, to create feelings of emotional and physical, even sexual safety for ourselves, being safe in our bodies and how we relate to others. So that's why, I do the guided meditations. I recommend doing moving meditations. A lot of times for people, it's really hard to sit down and meditate. So Qigong is Qigong, Qigong. You can find people that teach that on YouTube, and it's free. I've found Tibetan monks on YouTube that teach Qigong. I found really lovely ladies teaching some really powerful stuff with Qigong. And, 10 minutes of that can help you slow down, feel in your body, and have you start being able to register and take note of what's going on with you, so we're not just rushing through life and we're not paying attention or able to stop enough to really feel our boundaries. So Joan, going back to Joan, my imaginary person I made up, Joan has realized that her entire focus in relationship is only about the other person and not about her own boundaries. So creating those boundaries after realizing that is, so one of the things she voice typed that she took down about that she does is she always thinks about their feelings first and never hers first. So she can start with remembering, like maybe she can remember in the past in this other relationship, this instance came up and I didn't even think about my feelings around that situation. So maybe, let's say Joan was in a relationship and that her partner always made the decisions, the big life decisions. And let's say her partner decided, okay, we're going to move. We're going to move to this other state. You know, my job, they want to relocate me, and I make most of the money, so Joan, we're moving. And Joan has, no say. She's with someone that, is domineering because she unfortunately has imprinted on abusive relationships, so she is in an abusive relationship. So that person is like, doesn't even ask her, do you want to move? How do you feel about that? Would that be okay? This, her partner is saying, no, it doesn't even ask. That thought doesn't even come up. And Joan realizes that when she moved for that relationship with that partner, for the partner's job and everything, that she left all of her friends. And she didn't have that many. She had 3 friends. And those were hard for her to even make. That she left her friends. And maybe she had some family there that she was a little close to. Maybe her sister lived there and she moved away from her sister. And she realized that when she moved like that, she lost all of her support group. And and she's a shy person. Maybe Joan is a shy person, and it is difficult for her to make that groundwork of any kind of support for herself. And in doing that, uprooting her life for someone else, she lost her support structure, and she didn't even have a strong enough one for what she needed, but she lost the little bit she was able to cultivate for herself. So now she can look at, okay, I'm going to start setting some boundaries of what I'm willing to do and what I'm not for people. And I will never move for a partner again, for them. Okay? I will make my focus around developing my support structure for myself. Okay, so that's one boundary. And the next thing is she's always thinking of ways to please them so they're happy, so that maybe they'll be nicer to her. So she can look at that and say, okay, well, another boundary is I'm only going to consider getting to know someone, like becoming their friend, hopefully before dating, but to get to know someone if they already are nice to me, if they do behaviors that make it obvious that they care about if I'm happy. So I'm going to focus on my happiness and work on attracting situations where my happiness is part of that equation. I'm going to make that first. And then, and just start there. I will only go out with people that care about if I'm, happy with what we're doing that day. That maybe I'm not, maybe my energy's low and I don't want to do something that's real demanding, so I can say, I've been a little tired this week, so I would love to see you. If we can do something that matches my energy level, could we go to the movies? I would really appreciate that. And she decides Joan will only go out with people that are okay with her saying something like that, that care that that's what she's comfortable with, and they want to support her taking care of herself and doing something that feels a nice amount of comfort for her. So they're both enjoying the time together, and there's balance, right? So looking at how can you start asking for what you need, and she also might think, okay, I realize everyone I've been with was a heavy drinker. They were all alcoholics. So she says, okay, the next time I consider dating someone, they need to be a sober person. That's a really powerful thing, because they are going to be more aware and more in their bodies. So that's another thing. Maybe she goes, I'm really working on being healthy and working out so I don't feel depressed, and so I feel good about myself. So I'm only going to date people that care about taking care of their bodies, that maybe someone that also works out, or does a sport, or likes to go hiking, or something where I feel support for that healthy lifestyle. So she's creating more and more boundaries. And so now we're going to do a guided meditation before the end of the show. And we're going to talk about taking care of the inner child that had things that came up in the childhood. If you don't have an inner child, just do it for your inner self. Just do it for yourself. Say, this is my, the sweet part of myself that I'm going to work on always protecting, so they understand that they can have healthy boundaries. And so it doesn't mean you have to have this, trauma in your childhood, or things that were challenging, but that vulnerable, sweet, special part of yourself that is worthy of having those boundaries, because all of us are worthy of that. Every person. I don't care if you feel horrible about yourself. You deserve to take care of yourself and to create good things in your life for yourself. And so we're going to talk about that in this guided meditation. I'm going to do this with you. So right before the guided meditation, I want to read a little announcement for the radio. So this is one of our shows, and I picked it because of the title. The title, Nonviolence Radio. I am all for nonviolence on television, radio. Let's figure out how to get nonviolent and feel safe. So, alternating Mondays at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., hosted by Stephanie Van Hook and Michael Nagler. Nonviolence Radio explores the power of nonviolence worldwide through interviews and news. And I think that's really amazing. Let's focus on cultivating safety for people. That's why I teach self-defense, is to empower people so they don't have to deal with violence. They're so confident and strong within themselves that no one would try to pick on them or harm them. So I really believe in that. Okay, so do this with me now. We're going to finish with a guided meditation. So you can drink a large glass of water, which will encourage you to take a deep breath. Deep breaths are our basis of meditation. So I recommend drinking some water. And when you're ready, you can sit down. You sit up straight if you can, in a comfortable place. Put the hands palm up on your legs. It's a very open body language. And we're going to deep breathe. So we're going to take some deep breaths, and you breathe at your own pace. I will keep cueing you to breathe, but whatever pace works for you to have deep breaths is what we're going for. So we're going to inhale, and then we're going to exhale. Doing this with me now. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. One more deep breath. And exhale. Now we're going to do the guided meditation as if we are thinking about the tender, sweet part of ourselves or our inner child that went through some challenging things, and how to make that the focus of protecting and being there for that part of ourself, so they understand that they really deserve to have boundaries in life and in romantic relationship. So you can have your eyes closed if you want, and as we breathe, I want you to tune into that sweet part of yourself or your inner child. Tune into an age that you know needs some support, and we're going to inhale and just connect with that part of yourself. A couple more deep breaths. And last breath. So tuning into that part of yourself, let's imagine putting like a shield of energy around you and that part of yourself. Okay, so we have energy in our body, so this is to create a safe container. You're going to work on all the levels. We're going to work on the energy. So, because you have energy in your body. So pick your favorite color and make the energy that color, and put just a circle that envelops your whole body and this part of yourself in this beautiful color of energy. And this gives you some container and some separation from the rest of the world, your relationships, from all the feelings in the world. This is just for you and this part of yourself. And to give you some insulation and some barrier to it, okay, and feel some protection, some safe container. So pick your color, get the circle of energy around you and this part of yourself. Sometimes if I'm dealing with the inner child, I have them sit in my lap. Or you can also just feel that special part inside of yourself. Or you can also create a big, nice, fluffy chair and have them sit next to you inside this bubble. So whatever you would like to do. Or healing rock, a big boulder. But start creating a space for them, tuning into them, taking a breath, and then now we're going to take 2 breaths, and when you exhale, imagine your energy dropping out of your feet and your tailbone into the earth to connect in, so you're grounding into the earth. You can even grow roots, but that energy that you created in that bubble, you're just going to just connect yourself. So you still have a bubble, but you can also imagine some of that energy just drops down from the bubble. It doesn't break the bubble, but it allows you to connect with the earth. Okay? So you feel really in your body. Breathing in and exhale. Dropping that energy down, connecting with the earth. Growing roots, inhale. And exhale. And again, just imagine it if you don't feel energy. I feel energy, but not everyone does. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we have it in our body. Whatever your mind believes your energy will do. So just imagine it. So you've dropped that energy down. And now I want you to just communicate with the sweet part of yourself, or the inner child, which is also sweet, and just tell them, you know, we deserve to feel like we are lovable enough to ask for the boundaries we need, to create the boundaries we need in life when we are with someone that we're intimate with, that we're in love with, that we can still have our own identity, our own sense of self, and we deserve that. And even if it's been difficult and challenging to understand that we deserve that, you know, become the parent to your inner child. Talk to your sweet part of yourself and say, I know we haven't believed this. Sometimes we don't believe it, right? I know these have been difficult concepts to understand, but they're true. The people we love, we want them to feel good, right? We deserve that too. So you want to, those concepts that you may have about love and what love means and how you treat other people, think about what those concepts mean to you. So communicate with that sweet part of yourself, you know, and say, you know, we believe in your inner child, we believe that love means that there should be happiness, but we just believe it for other people. We believe that they should feel affection. We believe that they, you know, should get what they want. We believe that they should be comfortable. So we believe all those things about love already. So now, if those are true, then it also is true for us. We deserve to feel lovable. We deserve to feel kindness. We deserve to feel that we get our needs met, that we get to feel happy, that we get to feel healthy intimacy, that we get to be asked, what do we want? So you got to understand, if those belief patterns are there, but you're projecting them out on other people, they're still what you believe in. So just turn them, flip them around to yourself and say, this is true. I know I really believe in it, but I just need to understand it also is important for me. And so really communicate with yourself and say, this is what love means to me. And therefore, this is what my inner child deserves. And I want you to feel it in your heart. You're communicating with the sweet part of yourself. This is the precious part of yourself. You're so precious there. So really connect with how, there's no words to say how precious. So if you are connecting to that most beautiful, intimate, delicate part of yourself, really honor it. Find some love for it. Find some awe for that part of you. Like, I'm in awe of this delicate, beautiful, vulnerable, loving, lovable, passionate part of myself. And really acknowledge how special that part of you is. And in doing that, and this is a muscle. If this makes you cry, I've succeeded. Yay! I'm so happy. I want you to feel it. I want you to really be like, wow, there it is. I want you to see it. And if you're like, wow, I see it, but there's like all this muck around it. It's been a hard life. Just know it's there. It takes time. It takes time to find it, but it is there, and you want to work on this. So, you know, you see it. And now I want you to just really embrace that part of yourself. Take a breath. And imagine this bubble fills up with the energy of that color. Just make a bunch of energy fills up the bubble. and it's all that beautiful color. And this energy represents the kind of shield, the kind of protection that you have that only allows in good energy, good treatment, love, kindness, respect. Okay, I want you to really, that's the filter, the only thing that gets to you and your specialness and this valuable, poignant, passionate, incredible part of you. The only thing that gets in there is good stuff. You can have that filter. I want you to create the filter. So this barrier, and then pull that energy bubble in tight into your power center and around your inner child, around this special part of yourself. Now I want you to imagine a boundary you create for yourself. So if I was doing this for Joan, I would say, okay, Joan, I want you to imagine that you will only consider getting to know someone to see if they're worthy of even you consider even dating them. You're getting to know them to see if they'll be a worthy friend first. But someone that I want you to imagine in your body how it feels to only date people that are sober, because that was on your list. To only date someone that wants you to feel comfortable if you're tired that night and you've been able to ask for what you need to go to the movies. I want you to imagine your body. How's it going to feel to make that a requirement, that you will only be with people that it is valuable to them that you're happy. So I want you to pick something that is a boundary, and I want you to imagine your body how it will feel to start acting upon creating that boundary for yourself in romantic relationship. And that's the focus. So you can continue breathing and imagining and feeling. And I'm so grateful for you being here today. Again, this is Michelle Love with Dynamic Change. I do this show every week at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. Thank you for listening, and keep taking care and tuning into that amazing part of yourself. Thank you so much. I hope your day is fantastic. You can always go to my YouTube channel, Michelle Love with Dynamic Change and Wellness. Thank you. Bye-bye.